up is maximize the midsection. The strongest muscles in our body are from our chest to above our knee. The core, midsection, okay? But a lot of kids don't use these midsection muscles. They just use their arm. Now, I already talked about how the elbow's not meant to do this. The shoulder's not meant to do this. If I don't use my midsection to throw and I just do this, like a lot of kids do, I've basically only used my arm. My arm is not a very strong part of my body. I want to use these muscles. The more I use my midsection when I throw, the less stress I have to put on my arm, and the more power I generate, because this is the strongest part of my body. So Cole Hamels here, when he brings his knee up as a pitcher, he is nice and tall, and you can see his whole right side of his body, his shoulder, the outside of his right knee, the outside of his right foot, his right hip, are all facing home plate. When he's done his pitch, he has completely reversed everything. Now, everything that was behind him is now facing the batter. The back shoulder is now the front shoulder. The back hip is now the front hip. The back side of his knee is now the front side of his knee. And the back foot here is now facing the batter, the side of his foot. So he has completely done a whole 180-degree turn with his whole midsection and his body. Here's one of the biggest mistakes we as coaches make with little kids. We tell them to throw and get in the fielding position. How many guys have heard that? I heard that when I was little, okay? And this is what kids do. They come up, just like Cole Hamels, and they throw and they go, and they get ready to field. I only did a 90-degree turn here. I didn't really use my midsection. So on a little field where kids are getting started, I have a strong enough arm to do just that. But you can see I'm only using my arm. I'm not using my midsection. When that kid gets to a bigger field, now his arm's not strong enough to reach home plate. Now the ball's kind of dying a little bit. And what does the kid say to himself? Does he say, boy, I really need to use my body more? No, the kid says, I need to throw harder. I need to throw harder. And he now puts more stress on his arm, and now he blows his arm out. And that's one of the big reasons why kids never make it to a big field, is because of arm injuries and because they're not using their whole body. So we have to teach kids, whether it's a shortstop throwing at the first base, an outfielder throwing it home, and especially a pitcher, you have to reverse your sides. Front side, back side. Completely reverse that midsection. I'm getting a lot more out of my stronger muscles than just doing a 90-degree turn. But of course, we want kids to be safe. So we say, get in that fielding position to get ready for the ball. When you look at TV and you watch, even at the high school level, college level, professional level, here's the timing of how that's going to happen. Pitcher comes up, goes towards home plate, he throws a pitch, and bang, now the ball's hit. That's the timing. This is where the pitcher's in when the ball is actually hit. There's never going to be a time where that fielder is ever going to be at a fielding position when the ball is hit. That's why major league hitters, some of the best athletes in the world, will get hit by a line drive, because the pitcher will never be able to be in a fielding position. And that's because the timing of when the ball is thrown and when the ball's hit. So we should not be telling kids to get into the fielding position until after they get to this position here. Then they worry about fielding, okay? But a lot of kids don't. A lot of kids never get to this full rotation. They just go here and stop, and that's setting them up for a lot of problems, especially when they get to the bigger fields. So this, of course, is a pitcher, but the same thing would apply to a shortstop. Comes up and throws, and he rotates his midsection to get more out of his stronger muscles and not just using his arm, okay? But that's going to help a kid improve his velocity pretty quickly by just using more of his midsection. Instead of a 90-degree turn, that kid's using his full midsection to his advantage, and that's going to speed his arm up, and that is going to get more out of his arm without having to use more of his arm. He's transferring that stress to his larger muscles there. Now, next one. I brought a fishing rod. When's the last time you were at a coaching clinic and the guy brought a fishing rod? Okay. Here's my analogy. When a pitcher throws, it's like a fishing rod being cast. We've all cast a fishing rod, right? Okay. So here you have a guy. You can see what he's doing here. If he wants that lure to go very far and very fast, which end of the rod does he take towards his target first? Well, the very bottom, right? He takes the bottom part of the rod, goes first, and then whips everything over the top. Okay? So it's boom. That's what he does. Okay? He would not hold the top end of the rod straight up and then just go. It's not going to go anywhere. Okay? But that's how a lot of kids pitch. They stand straight up and then they fall towards home plate like that. That's like taking the rod, holding it here, and doing that. You get nothing out of the rod, and the guy's not going to get anything out of his body by falling and leading with the top part of his body. So if you look at this fishing rod, and this guy is leading with the bottom part of the fishing rod, here's what you'll see a pitcher do if he's doing it correct. He comes up here, he leads with the bottom part of his foot, just like the rod, and now he's able to whip everything right over the top, just like the fishing rod. So his body acts very much like that rod, but it starts with the pitcher going towards home plate with his foot, the bottom part of his body. His weight is back, and when he lands, just like the rod, he now whips right over the top and gets all that velocity and distance just like that long fishing rod. So that in and of itself can improve some kids' velocity because they're turning their body into a whip instead of starting vertical and just going down. And so that is one way, big way, to improve kids' velocities. Get that whipping action very much like a fishing rod. Now before I get into this, on your sheet there of notes, I think he included some of these notes here in your packet there, but it talks about long tossing. Long tossing is probably the only drill with a baseball that I can do which does increase velocity and arm strength. Most kids do not throw enough, and most kids don't throw long enough. So when I do long toss, I like to break it up into two parts. The lengthening phase and then the shortening phase.